to explain that psalm, to understand it in order to explain it. Now, Psalm 23 was written by King David. By the way, King David did not write the entire book of Psalms. Some people think that because it's called the book of Psalms, it's always referred to King David, they think he wrote the entire book of Psalms. No. King David wrote just over 70 Psalms. The rest were written, one was written by his son, King Solomon, and some others, there was another one written by Moses, and others were written by other tribes. But King David wrote the majority as one individual person. Psalm 23 is one of the Psalms definitely King David has written himself. King David wrote the book of Psalms around 1000 BC, before Christ. So before the birth of the Messiah, King David wrote his Psalms 1000 years before the Lord Jesus was born into this world. It's a fairly long time for us humans. A little bit of a background of who is King David, for those who are not aware. King David was the son of this father who was called Jesse. He comes from the house of Jesse. His dad's name was Jesse. Jesse had 8 sons, and King David happened to be the youngest of all. He had 8 sons, including David, but David was the 8th, the youngest amongst his siblings. The other 7 brothers, they were all strong, tall in stature. Physically, they were very strong. They were very tall, very solid built, young men. King David, on the other hand, was very short, very weak, thin. You blow at him, he would fall. He was the weakest and the shortest in the midst of all his brothers. He was the youngest and the weakest. When we look at our time and age, we can categorize society into 3 broad classes. There is the upper class, the rich people, there is the middle class, and there is the lower class, the poor people. Generally, society of our time is put into these 3 classes: the upper class, rich; the middle class; and the lower class, the poor people. So as was the case at the time of King David, his society at the time was also placed into 3 classes, different to the way it is now. What were those classes at the time of King David? The upper class, if we may put it this way, the upper class, i.e. the rich people, they were able to send their sons to join the army. So families who would send their sons to the army, that meant that family is a rich one financially, because it needed a lot of money to put your son in an army. Why? Because once they finished their service in the army, they would be placed in the highest and the most influential positions at government levels. So army graduates, they had the best of the best jobs ever, and they would only qualify them to rich families, to the sons of rich families. Now the middle class at the time of King David, they were the farmers and the merchants. The lower class, the poor people, were shepherds minding the sheep. That was the poor class, shepherds. Jesse, the father, looked at his son David and he said, "You are unfit neither to join the army nor to be a farmer or a merchant. You are weak in all aspects. You can't join the farming because it takes somebody who is powerful and strong, physically. And to be a farmer, you need to dig and you need to work hard from morning till night. You're too weak for that. So you can't go neither to the army nor be a farmer. Therefore, there is no other class left for you, my dear son, but to be a shepherd. The lower class. So David ended up being a shepherd, minding the flock of his dad Jesse. One thing about King David that was nice in him. I will try again, no worries. One thing about King David that was nice in him, he was never envious of his brothers. Imagine this, when your own dad comes to you and says, son, you're good for nothing, look at your brothers and look at you. How would you feel? That would really destroy you emotionally, mentally, every way, form and shape. It will really hurt you because you feel that you are not as good, and the most painful thing you would feel, you are rejected. And not only rejected by a stranger, by your own dad. Can't be any worse than that. But King David, even hearing it from his own dad, that you're good, you're not as good as your brothers, I'll make you a shepherd, go and mind my sheep and my flock. He was never envious of his brothers, but rather he was happy for them, i.e. he was content with whatever dad gave him. Now I'm giving you very key points. If you adhere to them, you'll be successful in life and successful in the sight of God, not men, God. He was content. He was not envious. Don't forget these words. He was content, not envious. And the third point, he was very happy to look after his father's sheep. He was very happy. Very happy. Wow. Beautiful characteristics in King David. So now, what happens? You see, when you're happy with what is given to you, when you don't whinge, you don't complain, you don't retaliate, you are happy, you are content, and you're not envious because your brothers are better than you. And I'm not talking just your biological family, I'm talking about your church family. Are you envious of other Christians? Are you jealous of your family members? Are you? If you are happy, if you are content, and you accept whatever is given to you from your physical father or your spiritual father like me, when you're happy, guess what? God will talk to you, not me. What happened? God sends one of his prophets called Samuel. He sends Samuel, he says, go to the house of Jesse and I want you to anoint one of his sons to be the king over the entire Israelite nation. So Samuel the prophet goes into the house of Jesse, and then he said, God send me to you, Jesse, to your house. And he said, one of your sons God has chosen to be the king over Israel. So Jesse, automatically, human nature kicks in and he says, oh, of course, my oldest son, look at his physiques, look at the muscles, look at the stature. He is good looking, brother. He fits the criteria quite comfortably. So he calls the first son in. Samuel looks, he says no. He calls the second one in. Samuel says no. The third, no. The fourth, no. The fifth, no. The sixth, no. The seventh, no. Jesse stands not knowing what to say or do anything anymore. He forgot he had the eighth son. He forgot about him. He was out there in the field minding the sheep. Jesse turns to Samuel the prophet and he says, these are my sons. Like, you just said God sent you. Well, God doesn't make mistakes. God never changes his mind. When he chooses somebody, that's it. It's forever. He never goes back on his word. So these are my sons, Samuel. What do you want?